Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Sunny Vanderstar. Today's topic is birdwatching, an Indian safari highlight. And our presenter today is our fabulous expedition leader, Aditya Panda. Aditya, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to just turn it right over to you. Let's get started.
Thank you, Sunny. Hello, everyone. So nice to be back again. I haven't been presenting for a while. I've been busy traveling around a bit. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Aditya Panda, and I am an India expedition leader with NatHab. I have been leading with NatHab since 2016. And today's webinar is going to be on birds. Now, it is often said, especially in India, that birders always miss out on the tigers, and those on safari looking for tigers usually miss out on birds. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. It is possible to, keep track of your big cats and spend some intense amounts of time looking for them, tracking them, and yet make enough time and find enough windows to look around and enjoy the fabulous bird life that an Indian safari presents. India is, extremely rich in birds. It's home to almost 10% of all the birds found in the world. We have, as of the latest figures, 1,363 species of birds, of which 81 are endemic to the Indian subcontinent. And about 1,000 species of birds are resident breeders here in India, while we get about 229 species of wintering migrant birds. There are also a few summer migrant birds. Now, what causes India to have such rich bird life? Well, it's the location of the subcontinent, the altitudinal range from sea level all the way up to the Himalaya, which are the highest mountain range in the world. And the location of the subcontinent is such that India experiences a very wide variety of climates, and also a very wide variety of habitat, from desert to swamps, mangrove swamps, rainforest, deciduous forest, coniferous forest, wetlands, grasslands. There's an amazing diversity of habitats, climate, and altitude in this subcontinent, which is why it is so rich in bird life. Of the over 1,300 species of birds that we have here, the destinations that NatHab travels to in India are quite rich in birds themselves. Our Central India reserves of Bandhavgarh and Kanha have over 300 species of birds each. And Kaziranga, which is one of my favorite destinations in the northeast of India, has 590 species of birds. Can you imagine? That's, if I've got my math correct, that's about 5% of all the species of birds found in the world in one protected area, in one national park. Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, where this picture was taken of Rufous tree pie being photographed by one of our guests, has over 386 species of birds. So let's start with some of the top birds that you might see while on safari in India. And let's start with the national bird of India, the Indian peafowl, also called the peacock. A very common bird in most parts of India, also common in human inhabited parts in certain areas, is the peacock, which is the largest pheasant in India, and which is of course known very well for its train of tail feathers that it displays when it tries to impress a peahen. And as you can see in this picture, the peahen to the right of the peacock does not have that train of tail feathers, and she doesn't appear interested at all in the male that's trying to get her attention. And that is often what happens. It's quite comical to watch peacocks displaying to peahens when they're around, and if the peahens show no interest, they start displaying to whoever else could give them some attention. It could be a spotted deer grazing by, it could be some other bird, or it could even be just a safari jeep. And yeah, peacocks do fly a bit. They don't fly very high. They're large, heavy birds, and they certainly don't have the most aerodynamic anatomy. But peacocks do go up to trees to roost at night, and also to escape predators. Peacocks are among the many birds and animals that we rely on to look for carnivores while out on safari, because they're very vocal, and they have a typical sort of meowing kind of call that they make, but they have also got an alarm call, which is very typical and can be quickly picked up by by us while we are out on safari, which gets us on the alert to look for carnivores or sometimes birds of prey. Now, this bird looks very similar to a domestic chicken, and the reason behind that is because this is the ancestor of the domesticated chicken. The red jungle fowl is found across northern India, around the Vindhya mountain range that sort of passes through central India, south of the river Narmada. The red jungle fowl is replaced by what we call the grey jungle fowl, which is a different species, which is found all across southern India. And the red jungle fowl is, if you compare them to chickens, they can fly really fast and fairly high, and they're very shy birds that we come across very often, usually a cock by itself, or maybe with 4 or 5 hens. And this red jungle fowl cock here is trying to find something to eat in some rhino midden in Kaziranga National Park. This is what the female looks like. Very similar to domestic chicken. Among our winter migrants are these bar-headed geese that they're not headed to the bar, even if they do look like that. It's they're called bar-headed geese because they've got those bars on their head. But these birds can head somewhere with purpose. They winter in India, and they breed and spend the summer in Central Asia and parts of Europe. And these geese are, they're the highest flying birds known to us, and they fly all the way over the Himalaya, across them and into the Indian subcontinent, and they're known to fly at altitudes higher than Mount Everest. That's 25,000 feet above mean sea level, and that's for comparison, that is the kind of altitude at which commercial jets fly at. Isn't that amazing? I've put the serial of birds in this presentation in in order of taxonomy. So we'll come to the forest birds later, and we'll talk a little more about waterfowl before that. This bird here is called the Asian openbill. It's a stork. And the reason why it's called the openbill is, of course, because the bill appears to be open even when it's closed. And the reason for that is that the bills sort of function like a pair of pincers, which are used to break the shells of snails and crabs and things like that. Asian openbill storks are wetland birds. You usually see them in large flocks of 8, 10, sometimes more. I've seen them numbering more than 50, close to 100 sometimes. But you also see them in pairs and singles at times. A very interesting stork and a very endangered stork is the greater adjutant stork. No less, these birds used to be very, very widespread across eastern and northeastern India earlier. And at one point of time, they were actually the logo of the Calcutta Municipal Corporation. This was a long time ago. This was when the British were ruling India. And the reason why this stork was on the logo of the Calcutta municipality was because these birds did a fair amount of work in cleaning off carrion and eating rubbish from garbage from garbage dumps, and were considered very important in helping keep the surroundings clean. But the draining of wetlands and a large amount of egg poaching and poaching of the birds themselves in those years, about 100 years ago, led to a drastic decline in the number of greater adjutant storks, and which is extremely unfortunate, because at one point of time these birds were among the most common, most widespread birds in that part of India. Today, there are no greater adjutant storks in Calcutta, and none in the state of West Bengal, in fact. The vast majority of them occur around a city called Guwahati, where we fly out of when we are on the Grand India Wildlife Adventure, and we see a few of them at Kaziranga National Park. Their numbers have declined so much that there are no more than 1,000 of these birds left right now. Greater adjutant storks fly and soar very, very high. They have a vulture-like appearance, and they also fly and soar high like vultures. They have this sort of air sac on their throat, but the purpose of it has not been deciphered yet. These storks, like other storks, they spread their wings and bask in the sun for long times, to get their batteries charged, as we joke, most likely to, warm themselves up, and they wait for the air to heat up enough to ride the thermals and reach the kind of altitudes that they reach, from where they look for carrion and other sources of food on which to come down and feed on. Everyone loves raptors, and they're fantastic to watch. They provide a lot of action when you're out watching wildlife, like most carnivores do, and they're also usually very good looking, very photogenic, and people just love to photograph raptors, and we see a lot of raptors on our India safaris. But for the sake of the time limit that we have on these webinars, I'm only going to talk about two eagles, one of which is the Pallas's fish eagle, which is perhaps the largest raptor that we see while out on safari in India. The Pallas's fish eagle, like other fish eagles, is it's found close to water, and fish form its primary source of nutrition. This here is at a nest. You can see there's a juvenile, a fledgling in the background. Another fish eagle that we see, slightly smaller than the Pallas's fish eagle, is the gray-headed fish eagle. I think these are one of the handsomest eagles that we see in the subcontinent, and I just love watching them. Now, I've managed to take a video of a gray-headed fish eagle at a kill in Kaziranga Tiger Reserve, and it seems to have caught this large, probably catfish, or it could be a carp. I wasn't there to see whether it had caught it or not, but the eagle, as you will see in the video, was very, very angry at a pair of Pallas's fish eagles. So I don't know if the gray-headed fish eagle had killed the fish and the Pallas's eagles were trying to steal it, or if it was the other way around.
That's how I am when I'm eating.
Very angry bird. Another raptor that we see very often while especially in central India is the Oriental honey buzzard. Now, why would someone call it a honey buzzard? Well, this is why. These buzzards are experts at raiding beehives, and they look for the larvae of the honeybees, and they're also known to eat on the honeycombs. Now, just like the greater Adjutant stork, vultures across species in India, rather the entire Indian subcontinent, have seen a drastic decline in numbers. It is believed that through the 1990s and early 2000s, vulture numbers in India came down by about over 99%. That's a phenomenal amount of population decline within that kind of a time period. I remember when I was a kid, vultures were one of the commonest birds around. You'd see them everywhere, next to garbage dumps, next to roadkills. You'd see entire flocks. There used to be so many train accidents, not causing any damage to the trains, but killing a lot of vultures on railway tracks, because trains would sometimes run over cattle or feral dogs and things like that, and entire flocks of vultures would descend upon railway tracks. But suddenly this extremely common bird became very endangered, and the reason behind that was a drug called diclofenac. It's used as a painkiller very widely among humans, and it used to be very widely prescribed for domestic cattle. Now, not only was diclofenac a drug that was used as a painkiller by veterinarians, it was also found that diclofenac injections would lead to much higher milk yield, much higher milk production from cattle. So it was used and abused very widely across India. The usual practice of discarding deceased livestock in India is to discard them out in the open, away from villages, in areas far away, in common lands far away from villages. And usually that would lead to vultures coming down and cleaning up the carcasses very, very quickly. But when these vultures started feeding on cattle carcasses that had diclofenac in them, it was found that their kidneys and pancreas would start to fail. And vultures are very slow breeders. They lay only one egg a year, and they're very choosy about nesting sites. So when you have such large numbers of them dying off, and such a slow rate of breeding, that leads to population collapse. Diclofenac has been banned from veterinary usage in India since the early 2000s now, and there are several efforts to try and increase the population of vultures through captive breeding, as well as as a result of the ban on diclofenac. Fortunately, India's tiger reserves, especially the ones that have good tiger populations, have sort of inadvertently helped save vultures. The last remaining vulture populations that escaped this whole sort of diclofenac pandemic, if you would like to call it that, were the vultures that were found in the tiger reserves with good tiger populations. Because in these reserves, dead cattle were not their only or their main source of food. There were enough natural kills by tigers of deer and wild pigs and other natural prey for these vultures to survive on. And it's yet another example where saving an umbrella species has helped save something so much lower in the food chain. This bird here is a red-headed vulture. I think it's one of the handsomest vultures that we find in India. The red-headed vulture, unlike say the Indian vulture or the white-backed vulture, which are more commonly seen, unlike them, the red-headed vulture isn't it isn't a flock bird. It isn't a communal bird. It is usually seen in ones or twos, trying to steal a bite from next to a large flock of white-backed or Indian vultures. I think one of the prettiest birds that we see in the winters while out in Kaziranga in Northeast India is the northern lapwing. Just look at that crest, isn't it? It's very, very good looking. The northern lapwing is a winter migrant that is seen all the way up to March or a little later in Kaziranga. And it's a bird that's very widespread across the world, all the way from North Africa through Europe, the Indian subcontinent, into China. And it's a highly migratory bird. A much more common lapwing that we see very often is called the red wattled lapwing. It's got a call that goes that sounds like the words "Did you do it?" And that's why it's also called the "Did you do it" bird. And these birds are very, very vocal. Like all lapwings, they are ground nesters. They don't really build a nest. They just find a patch of gravel or soil and lay their eggs in it. And the eggs are so well camouflaged that it becomes impossible to sort of identify them unless one is looking from literally a foot away. And that's how these birds can get by without having to build a nest. But they're also super careful about keeping potential predators away, which is why the breeding pair will constantly patrol the nesting site, and they mob and chase away any potential danger by flying towards it, and by continuously calling very loudly. You can even hear them calling at night sometimes. Pigeons are usually thought of as boring gray birds seen in cities, but we have high diversity of wild pigeons in India, and several of them are green pigeons. Green pigeons are mostly fruit-eating pigeons, and one of the commonest green pigeons that we see in our forests is the yellow-footed green pigeon. The bright yellow feet that the bird has are the reason why it's called the yellow-footed green pigeon. And these birds are found in well-wooded country with a high diversity of fruiting trees. Parakeets, everyone loves parakeets. They're intelligent, they're noisy, they make all kinds of sounds, and of course they're probably after cats and dogs and maybe goldfishes, parakeets are probably the most popular pet animals in the world. That has cost them dearly, of course, in several parts of the world, because a lot of wild parrots and parakeets are caught to be entered into the pet trade. We have a high diversity of parakeets here in India, and the largest of them is called the large Indian parakeet, or the Alexandrine parakeet. And in the pet trade, these birds are valued very highly for their all parrots and parakeets, almost all parrots and parakeets are capable of mimicking human voice and human words. But the Alexandrine parakeet does a really good job of it. Fortunately, since 1972, all trade, capture, trade, and ownership of parakeets, Indian species of parakeets, including the Alexandrine parakeet, is banned in India, so it's illegal to keep them here now. If you notice, among the two birds, one of them has, the one in front has a ring around its neck, black and pink ring, and that bird is the male. The female does not have the ring. If this bird looks very familiar to a bird that most Americans know as the Indian ringneck, then that's because they do look very similar. But the Alexandrine parakeet is much larger, and if you notice, it has these maroon shoulder patches that the Indian ringneck, which is better known as the rose-ringed parakeet, does not have. The rose-ringed parakeet is one of the commonest birds across India. They're much smaller, about half the size or lesser compared to the Alexandrine parakeet. And they're also equally popular in the pet trade. But fortunately, these birds breed very, very well. They usually breed around springtime in India. All parakeets, almost all of them, breed around March and April. And at that time of the year, a lot of people still illegally go out to capture chicks from nests. Parakeets are hole nesters, and they nest in holes in tall trees and also in tall buildings. This bird is again threatened because of the pet trade. But the rose-ringed parakeet is quite widespread around the world. It's become an invasive in several parts of the world. I know that they exist in South Africa, they exist in Europe, and they exist, I'm sure, in parts of North America. Now, these birds became invasive as a result of pet birds escaping and forming colonies and managing to breed in the wild. The female rose-ringed parakeet, just like the female Alexandrine parakeet, lacks a ring around its neck. One of our prettiest parakeets is the plum-headed parakeet, much smaller than the rose-ringed parakeet. These birds are very, very pretty, and I love their calls. The male has this purple colored head, and he also has shoulder patches like the Alexandrine parakeet that you can barely see in this picture. The female lacks the shoulder patches. It lacks the black ring that the male has around its neck, and she has a gray head. And this is a nesting pair that's nesting in one of the holes in this dead sal tree in Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. There's another one. This is from a flock that's feeding at Ranthambore Tiger Reserve next to a road where pilgrims often throw grains for birds. Now, this bird in the back here is a rose-ringed parakeet, and that's a plum-headed parakeet, so it can give you some scale of size and how much smaller the plum-headed parakeet is. Another parakeet that I think looks much better than all the three previous parakeets is the red-breasted parakeet. I think it's a brilliant looking bird, and it's found in northeast India and along the foothills of the Himalaya in the Tarai forests. Now, there's a bird that we call the brain fever bird, and that is the common hawk cuckoo. I don't know where the expression of someone going cuckoo came from, but I think it must have come from this bird. This bird screams its head off all through the day, and especially in the summer, all through the night. The call of the common hawk cuckoo goes something like this. I don't have a recording, so excuse my bad mimicry, but I'll give it a try. So the common hawk cuckoo's call is something like, well, it sounds just like the words brain fever. Another bird called the Indian cuckoo is again very vocal in the summer. Just like the common hawk cuckoo, the Indian cuckoo is heard much more than it is seen. And the term we use to describe the call of this bird is one more bottle, because the call of the bird is something like, owls. I don't know anyone who does not like owls, and perhaps the cutest owls you'll see while on safari in India is the Indian scops owl. These owls are also probably our smallest owls, and entirely nocturnal. They hunt primarily insects, sometimes small mice and frogs, and lizards and things like that, but mostly insects. And through the day, you'll often find them in their nests where they roost, and they nest in holes in trees. But through the day, they don't go and sort of hide inside the hole. They try and sit at the edge of the hole to get as much sunlight as they can to warm themselves up. And they like to fall asleep out basking in the sun. Of course, if there's a threat or if they feel disturbed, they might go inside. But this is usually how you find them. One owl that's definitely active during the day as much as it is at night is the jungle owlet. It's it's got a very nice call, and it's you can see it through the day, even in the middle of the afternoon, out hunting. One of our larger owls that we see while on safari is the brown fish owl. They're usually found next to streams and large water bodies where, like the fish eagles, they hunt for fish. Rollers are some of the most brilliant looking, most photogenic birds ever. Those of you who've been on safari in Africa must be big fans of the lilac-breasted rollers. We have the Indian roller that's quite commonly seen while on safari in India. Rollers are called rollers because of the acrobatic, aerobatic rolls that they perform while hunting. They're very bold birds. They allow you to come quite close. You can watch and photograph them from very close, and they always make amazing photography subjects. They're also very comical in their in their behavior, in their expressions. And this here are two males trying to impress a female Indian roller. That's how close you can get to them. A lot of times I've had to switch lenses because they've been too close for the minimum focus distance of my telephoto lenses. In northeastern India, we have a different race of the Indian roller. It's still the same species, but it's a much darker morph. And now people have started referring to it as the Indo-Chinese roller. At the destinations that we travel to on safari in India, we have chances to see at least 4 species of kingfisher, actually 5. But I'll show you the 3 commonest and 3 most impressive species of kingfisher that we see. The largest is the Stork-billed Kingfisher that we see here. And the Stork-billed Kingfisher is certainly not among the commoner kingfishers that we see. The commonest kingfisher that we see is the white-throated kingfisher. They're found all over the country. They're found even far away from water. They're the least, kingfisher-like of our kingfishers. I have one in my garden. There's no pond, there's no water body anywhere within half a kilometer or longer of my garden. And the kingfisher in my garden is quite happy feeding off garden lizards and frogs and even geckos of the wall and the chicks of other birds during the summer nesting season. While it is called the common kingfisher, it is again not the commonest kingfisher we have in India. It's the commonest kingfisher that's found in Europe, and probably that's why it's called the common kingfisher. But it's certainly one of the, it's the smallest kingfisher that you'll see while on safari at the destinations that NatHab travels to in India. And it's a brilliant blue bird. And I hear there are a lot of fans of kingfisher beer in North America and Europe. Kingfisher is a very famous brand of beer from India, and the kingfisher on the logo of that brand is this bird. Hornbills are amazing birds. They are always a symbol of the health of the canopy, of the health of the diversity of a forest. They require a large variety of fruit. While they're omnivores, most of them, they eat a significant amount of fruit, and they require a large variety of fruit and berries and figs to survive. And the largest hornbill and the most impressive looking hornbill that you'll find in India is the great pied hornbill. We see them in Kaziranga National Park while we are on safari there. And these birds are huge, and they have a lovely large casque on their heads. And they're found all along the foothills of the Himalaya in the Terai forests all the way into Northeast India, in the rainforests and evergreen forests of Northeast India. And there is a separate population about 1,000 miles or more, probably 2,000 miles to the south, in the Western Ghats of southern India, where they exist in rainforests. The great pied hornbill plays a huge role in the dispersal of seeds in rainforests. That's because they feed on berries and fruit like this here, and they fly long distances. And as they fly and as they defecate, they drop the seeds around as they travel. The great pied hornbill is known for its very interesting nesting behavior. Now, this bird here on the left is a male, and the one on the right is a female. You can see the difference in the color of the eye. The female hornbill, once she is ready to lay her eggs, and hornbills again are hole nesters, so they nest in holes very high up in tall old growth trees. And once the female is ready to lay her eggs, the male is going to cover up the entire hole with a mixture of clay that it collects. And there's only a small sort of peephole left as a feeding hole through which he then collects food to come and feed the female. And that's an amazing behavioral evolution to keep the nest safe while the female is hatching the chicks and raising them. The Coppersmith Barbet is our smallest barbet. It's about that big, maybe 3 inches, 4 inches from the tip of its beak to the tip of its tail. And it's a colorful little bird, very small, so it takes some effort to find it, especially easy to see them on winter mornings when they perch right up on top of exposed branches of some trees and bask in the sun. And they're a very vocal bird, continuously making a sound very similar to a coppersmith hammering a copper pot into shape. And that's how they get their name. Among our insect-eating birds, the Scarlet Minivet is the most striking looking bird. The male is a bright red, scarlet red, which is how it gets its name. And see how it is flapping its wings here. They'll often flap their wings and hover for very short periods. They can't really hover like a hummingbird, for example, but they flap their wings to try and flush insects out of foliage before they catch them. So they can feed as flycatchers, which is to catch insects while in flight or while perched. But it's this flapping and flushing behavior that I find most interesting. This bird looks like a completely different species, but it is not. It is a Scarlet Minivet too, but it is the female, and she is this bright yellow, and instead of black, she has this ashy gray sort of top. Another insect eater is the racket-tailed drongo, the greater racket-tailed drongo. These birds are very interesting birds. Not only do they look striking with that crest of theirs and those rackets sort of stretching out of their. They're also amazing mimics. I don't know if they mimic human voice. I don't think they do, but they can do a really good job of mimicking other birds, especially the calls of raptors like the crested serpent eagle, which has a whistling kind of call, that this racket-tailed drongo can mimic really well. And there have been records of them even mimicking jeeps backing up, while while they're out watching wildlife in Indian reserves. Racket-tailed drongos are also, like all drongos, very notorious mobsters. They mob other birds quite a bit, like they're mobbing this crested serpent eagle. Not very polite behavior when you keep copying the calls of that bird and treat it this way, is it? Another one of our most striking looking birds is the Asian paradise flycatcher. This bird is, it's resident in some places and it's a local migrant in others. They breed in the summer. So in some places they're seen throughout the year, and in others they're seen only in the summer. The male grows these beautiful fairy-like, white tail feathers, while the female is copper sort of brown color. In some races, the male is also a copper brown color, but it still has its long, tail. One of my personal favorites among all birds is the hill myna. This is the northern hill myna. We also have a southern hill myna. But on safari in India with NatHab, you're likely to see the northern hill myna at Kaziranga National Park. These birds, again, like parakeets, were captured in very large numbers for the global pet trade because they are the best stalkers. And fortunately, after the capture and trade in hill mynas was banned, their populations are slowly recovering. They're slower breeders than parakeets and more choosy when it comes to quality of habitat. So their numbers are recovering slowly now. But in areas where they do occur in good numbers, it is very soothing to hear their beautiful melodious calls, especially in the mornings while out on safari. It's amazing. And with that, I'd like to end today's webinar. I hope you're enjoying your holidays, and I wish you all, a very happy new year in advance. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Aditya, thank you so much. Before we start the Q&A, I want to remind everyone that they can submit their questions via the questions field in the control panel. So we'll start with an easy one. Do you have any recommendations for guidebooks for birds in India?
Oh, yes. There are several, but this one here is considered the best. Sunny, do let me know if I have to move the book around for everyone to see it.
Maybe move it up just a little bit. Yep, that's great. You can see the whole book now. Birds of the Indian Subcontinent.
It's available very widely. You can order it off Amazon or just buy it off a bookstore.
Excellent.
This is
all right
to have that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've got lots of interesting and very specific questions. So we're going to challenge you a little bit. Why does the lapwing have such long yellow legs?
Well, it's a plover, and like all plovers, they have long legs. They're mostly ground-dwelling birds and ground-nesting birds. They feed on the ground. They do a lot of running about, and since they're ground-nesting birds, they sort of perch on their knees when they have to rest or sit down or incubate their eggs. So like all plovers do. So that's why the lapwing has such long legs.
Got it. Anything to the yellow part of that, or just
No.
no?
The
Okay.
birds are usually brightly colored. If you notice from your chickens to pigeons to most birds have brightly colored legs. I don't know why they do that.
They're nice to look at, though. Okay. Do peacocks spread their tail feathers just to mate or to scare off predators?
No, they do it to attract females. When there's a predator after a peacock, it does a very desperate job of literally holding its tail feathers together and flying off as quickly as it can. So they don't do that to scare off predators, no.
Got it. Okay. Another very specific one. Is there a reason that the flycatcher has such a long tail?
Well, maybe next time I should give a disclaimer that I'm mostly a big cat guy, but no. The male flycatcher has those long tail feathers, and in most birds, the males are they've evolved to be very, very attractive, very colorful to the females, because birds they can see more colors than us, and in birds, being more colorful, being more feathery, having a better crest or a longer tail is always seen as a sign of greater health. So when a female is choosing a partner, she is going to look for the most well-groomed, the handsomest, the most the most stylish male she can find, and that's how she chooses the best genes for her eggs and her chicks. So that's why the male paradise flycatcher has that long tail.
Got it. Okay. How many of the birds represented today might you expect to see on the average NatHab trip?
All of them.
All
Almost
of
all of
them.
them.
Excellent. Okay. Do the jungle fowl lay edible eggs like regular chickens?
They do, but it's illegal to eat them.
Let's see here. We've got some great questions. Oh, can you just share the publisher of that guidebook that you showed
It's
and the author?
The author are Grimmett and Inskip, Grimmett, Inskip, and Inskip, and the publisher is Helm Field Guides. That's right on top here.
Excellent. Okay, let's see if we can challenge you with another one. Let's see here. This one I'm not quite sure. It's about peacocks and their nests. Do they make nests, or what do they make nests with? I'm not sure what the exact question is, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, peacocks, as a birder friend of mine likes to say, are like glorified chickens. They're all pheasants. So all pheasants are ground nesters, and peacocks also nest on the ground. They don't really they don't really make a nest. They just find a suitable depression on the ground in enough cover, and they lay their eggs there.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. How does the honey buzzard protect itself from being stung?
Flies away. But they also have these tough feathers around their face and neck area that probably save them from bee stings. But advantage of being a bird is that you can always fly away from bees.
So true, so true. All right. Are there any birding groups that are protecting or attempting to protect the adjunct storks?
Yeah, there are many organizations that are involved in it, and of course there's the forest department, and as we save more and more habitat in places like Kaziranga, where we travel to, we are making it easier for the adjutant stock to sort of continue persisting and continue finding suitable habitat to feed in and breed in and live in. So a lot of effort is going into it.
Got it. Sounds good. Well, I think that's the last question we have time for today. You've got lots of appreciative viewers saying thank you and happy holidays, and they really enjoyed your bird calls.
Thank you so much.
So I'll turn it over to you if you have any closing comments.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Birders are always tough, and I'm glad I passed through the Q&A. And I look forward to seeing you again in the new year with a new webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Sunny.
Excellent. Thank you again. And thanks everyone who joined us today. Please join us next week for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this next week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Thanks everyone, and have a wonderful new year.